Welcome back to the On the Ice show. I'm Andrew Greenall, your host. Theo is still away. Today, January 5th, we are speaking with Bryan Graham, the Director of Officiating for the HNO. We want to sit down with him, talk to him about his past experience, his appointment to the HNO, and what's in store for officiating going into the 21 season, and just see what's happening out there with officials. Maybe just talk to him, about where he's been, what he's done, and what's shaking as a referee coordinator. Bryan's an interesting fella, has over 40 years of officiating experience, so this should be a great show. Stay tuned. Bryan, welcome to the show. Thanks very much for joining us on this beautiful day, January 5th. How are things out there in Ontario?
Nice meeting you, Andrew, and Happy New Year. We've had a real mild stretch here over the holidays in Thunder Bay, so the snow is actually melting a little bit, so it's all good.
I'm jealous. We're going to have to call this show over. Snow's melting already. Wow.
Well, a little bit. I mean, that doesn't mean that it's going to melt away forever. We're going to be, golfing in the next month or so, but we'll take it right now for sure. It's actually been a pretty decent winter.
I think the COVID police would arrest us if we went golfing. We would be too close. So
that's true. Yeah. Well, I can't make a 6-footer anyway, so I wouldn't be 6 feet from the pin. So.
Me too. I hear your pain. Bryan, thanks so much for joining us. Yes, Happy New Year to you as well, to you and your family. Bryan, 40 years of experience as an official, quite the accomplishments you have here, accomplishments you have here, officiating the Allan Cup, United States Hockey League, the East Coast Hockey League. Wow. Do you want to talk about just some of that before we get into the real reason we're talking to you today?
Well, sure. I know I feel a little bit old when it says over 40 years, but I got a really early start in officiating. I was still playing like a lot of kids do across Canada and the United States and North America and in Europe as well. But I started officiating games on the outdoor rinks just by accident when I was 9 years old. Just was skating on the other sheet, and they didn't have any referees for a Mighty Mite game or whatever, little 6-7-year-olds. And next thing you know, you got one of the coach's whistles and you're out there. Back then, no helmet, just wearing a toque. And then I progressed into minor hockey. I got my levels from Hockey Canada, or I guess it was the Canadian Amateur Hockey Association back then, not to date myself too far back. But when I was 12 years old, so I started doing, more minor hockey then, and it just progressed over time. I ended up moving to the States when I was 28. And then I wasn't chasing the NHL dream by any means. It was just a situation where I ended up moving to Florida. And they had a professional league there. I had done some professional league games in the Colonial Hockey League when they came to Thunder Bay in the early 1990s. And then through a connection there, I discovered that there was the Sunshine Hockey League in Florida, which was a minor pro league that had started up, I think, around 1992. And I was fortunate enough to get hired there. I lived in Tampa, Florida, and I worked the Sunshine League, or they used to call it the Beach League. And that league lasted about 4 years. The final year, it was the Southern League because they actually expanded outside of Florida. So I kind of got my feet wet there, refereeing pro, because I was a linesman in the Colonial League when I worked here locally for games in Thunder Bay. And then then the Southern League unfortunately folded. So I wanted to stay in hockey. I had a broadcasting background as well, and I thought with my officiating background, and hockey was really booming in the United States in the 90s, all over the map. So I ended up working in a couple of different leagues, and then finally ended up in the ECHL and had a really good run there. Worked 2 years on the ice, retired at 34 when I was offered a job in the front office after Andy Van Helleman, the longtime NHL referee and Hall of Famer, was running the hockey operations and the officiating for the ECHL. Wow. And then Andy got offered a chance to go back to the National League to run the officiating there. And I was fortunate enough to take over as the officiating director, and then that morphed into vice president of hockey operations for the East Coast Hockey League. So I lived in Princeton, New Jersey for 5 years before returning to Canada. So yeah, it's been It's been an interesting run, and very grateful. It's a great way to stay in the game. I was all done as a player at 19 years old. I was a decent player, but obviously not very good to get to the next level after I was 19. So, yeah, it's been a very rewarding experience. I think I've seen just about everything you could probably see, and hope to bring those experiences now into my new position with HNO.
Wow. Well, congratulations on your accomplishments and congratulations on the appointment of being the official officiating, or what are they calling you? Director of Officiating for the HNO. How did that happen? You've obviously your long stretch of officiating and you come back to Ontario. Did you come back specifically for this role, or was this, you just were in the right place at the right time?
No, I spent the last 6 years as commissioner of the Superior International Junior Hockey League, which is a Junior A league, part of the Canadian Junior Hockey League. I ended up leaving that position last May, and then the branch approached me, Hockey Northwestern Ontario, which is the Hockey Canada branch here in this part of the world, in the Thunder Bay and Northwestern Ontario area. And they had always had a referee in chief, which was sort of a volunteer position to kind of, try to look after everything. But they realized that it needed more, and it's a credit to Jason Perrier, the president of HNO, Alex Viant, the executive director, Jim Fetter, the technical director, that they saw that they needed to commit more time and money into more of a position. And so no longer is it title as the referee in chief, it's director of officiating. So I'll be in charge of kind of development for all levels of hockey, right from minor hockey right through to our highest level, which is Canadian University hockey. We have an OUA team here with Lakehead University that plays in the OUA, and obviously the leagues, the Junior A and Junior B, and everything that follows, going kind of down the ladder. So, I've been home here in Thunder Bay for about 15 years. Like I said, I worked 6 years in the Junior League, and this is a newly created position, and I'm very fortunate and grateful that I'm the one that is going to kind of carry the torch now from the officiating standpoint.
Wow, it's a lot to put on your shoulders. Are you gonna love the mug? Are you?
Yeah, we're flying the colors today.
Yeah, go Canada.
Yes.
The game should be on shortly, actually.
Yeah,
So
it's been a great tournament, and I have to say the officiating has been great, and it's all Canadian officials. So a real
yeah,
credit to Hockey Canada there and the work they've done with all the crew that's working that tournament in
exactly.
Edmonton. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So this role, newly appointed, newly, I guess, established. That's quite the feat that you're going to have to deal with, dealing from minor all the way to basically semi-pro. Um, I get if you could maybe let our viewers know what your intentions are going to be, what you're going to be doing to try to build the program for referees. Because as a dad, as a coach, as a scout, I can tell you that is one job that is thankless. Nobody wants it. Everybody hates you, no matter if you make the right or wrong call. So what's it going to be like for you? What are you going to be trying to do to help build the program out there?
Yeah, the old saying, black and white and never right? That's one I always remember. But I think the biggest thing right now, Andrew, is just in development is getting more eyes on the officials, getting more supervisions done. I mean, that's always been a big thing in the branch, and I know that in this position they want that to have a heavy emphasis on watching the officials. I think one of my assets is I think I'm a pretty good referee coach. Because I've been around for a long time, and I think just trying to have a consistent approach in what we're trying to teach. So we don't have to be teaching 9-year-old referees or 12-year-old referees the same thing that we're working on with referees that are have been around for 15 or 20 years, that are working the OUA hockey or the Superior International Junior Hockey League. So I think that's a big part of it. Retention is obviously another big one, as you know, with your experiences in coaching. It takes a real special person to go on the ice and referee hockey, and I think we have to be very cognizant of the officials to make sure that they're being protected, making sure they're being supported when they have to be. I think, and just in general now, younger people don't seem to have maybe the thick skin that we used to have. Like I know being yelled at by coaches and parents when I was, 12, 13, 14 years old. And a lot of these young officials that are working minor hockey, yes, they're going to make mistakes. It comes from experience, but they're not making any more mistakes than the, 14-year-old Bantam defenseman or the forward or the goaltender. Nobody's perfect out there. And I think sometimes in hockey, especially in the minor hockey system, there's too much emphasis on results. It's they want to blame a referee for calling a tripping penalty, with 4 minutes to go in a tie game in the middle of December that results in the game-winning goal. Well, 10 years from now or 20 years from now, none of the players in that game are going to remember the result. They're going to remember the friends they played with, the coaches, the road trips, the being at the pool, at the hotel, all that kind of stuff. So that goes all into into everything. That we need support from the parents, we need support from the coaches, we need support from the players, executive members, to really support the officials, because there is a real shortage of officials now. A lot of youngsters aren't getting involved in it because they're worried or scared about being lambasted or criticized, and then with social media now and all that kind of aspect coming into it, it's just a whole new animal that I never had to deal with at that age. But yeah, we definitely have to have officials out there getting the support. And I said, maybe they don't have the thick skin that we used to when we were kids or youngsters, but it's a big part of the process. So retention's huge, and also just getting new officials involved in the game. And it's funny because you talk to officiating people, not even just in hockey, but there is a real shortage of officials coming through the system in any sport now. Like we border the state of Minnesota, and I've read where down in Minnesota at times, and I'm sure this is no different than other areas of North America, that on high school nights, whether it's they're playing lacrosse or soccer or baseball or hockey, on those selected nights, sometimes there's not enough officials to do all the games. And so getting officials involved, getting former players involved or current players is huge. I know the National Hockey League has really gone that route. They're trying to get a lot of former players that played at a high level into the officiating program, and they've had some success with it. So that's a big thing. Part of my job, I guess, is the biggest thing. Three things probably right now, Andrew, would be supervision, development, and then retention, and then trying to recruit new officials into the game.
Bryan, we have to take a quick commercial break, sir. So many questions just come to mind with everything you've just said that I want to try to touch on. Everyone stay where you are. We'll be right back.
At Super 8 Winnipeg West, we have your comfort in mind with free Wi-Fi and free daily Superstart breakfast. We also have guest laundry facilities, a state-of-the-art fitness center, and a jetted hot tub. Sleep well in a spacious guest room equipped with plush new bedding, a 50-inch flat-screen HD TV, microwave, mini refrigerator, and Keurig coffee maker. Or book a suite with a kitchen, ideal for extended stays. Super 8 Winnipeg West, located just inside the perimeter on Portage Avenue.
Welcome back, everyone. We have Bryan Graham, the new Director of Officiating for the HNO. Bryan, you brought up some really key points there, like retention, keeping the kids on the ice. Do you, quite candidly, do you think that it's the coaches that are ruining it for these young referees? Like you brought up that the kids might not have thick skin, but it triggered something in my mind that as a coach across Canada, we have to take our respect and coach. As a parent, you have to take respect and parenting. I think it's the coaches, to be quite honest with you, that are really ruining it for some of these young kids. They're just kids. They're going to make mistakes. You make mistakes. I make mistakes. So just quite candidly, don't you think that some of the training could be for the coaches? And we could sit down with them and go, listen, guys, pull your head out of your butt and let's start being respectful. I'm sorry, I'm very passionate about this, Bryan, and I'm happy that we have you
For sure,
on because you see these 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds trying to ref a little U7 game or U7, and the coaches are going ballistic. It's just a game.
I totally get it, and I don't want to pin this just on on coaches, and parents obviously play a big factor in it, and I think Hockey Canada has done a great job with some of the programs that you mentioned, trying to bring more awareness to it. But I think they're just, like I said, they get so fixated on results. And again, in the middle of November in a hockey game, it's not life or death. And if officiating, it's a tough job, and you never get a chance to look at it twice. In the higher levels now, they have all kinds of replays to show that it was onside or offside, or the puck was in the net, or the puck didn't go in the net. And at most levels of hockey, they don't have those resources, so they have to go with their eyes and their instincts. And a lot of times, by teaching officials, to be in the right position and anticipate certain things, and that comes with experience. So yes, a young, 10-year-old kid out there on a Saturday morning refereeing hockey, it might only be his fourth or fifth game. That definitely doesn't deserve to be criticized whatsoever. As long as he's hustling, or she's hustling, and trying to be in the right spot, and trying to make it a fair and safe game for everybody, that's all you can really ask for at this point. And if they enjoy it, they can move along in the officiating world. And and maybe one day, if they climb the ladder high enough, they'll get paid a very nice salary to work in the NHL. It's the odds are against that, but for some, that's a dream that does come true.
Like you brought up earlier about the World Juniors, there's already been a few challenges, coaches calling challenges on the play for, I believe, an offside, a goal on an offside, and I believe we saw one with a face-off. So yes, we have that ability for video replay at the higher levels, the NHL, the World Juniors, Allan Cup, so forth. These young kids you brought up about being in the right position at the right time, sometimes it's very difficult to learn that, being 9, 10, 11 years old. You're still learning and trying to get in the right positions. So I'm assuming your job and your role is going to be helping facilitate that for these young guys and girls. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And, we're going to have, a pretty complimentary supervisor staff of veteran officials that are in the Thunder Bay and surrounding area for Northwestern Ontario. A lot of the officials that I've worked hand in hand with the ECHL that are going to be working with the younger kids and trying to draw on their experience to help them out in, like you said, in positioning and anticipation and communication, which is a huge thing now. A lot of youngsters now, they only know the only way they know how to communicate is with their fingers on their phone. And even working in pro hockey, yeah, exactly, even working in pro hockey, whether I thought I was a very good communicator, and I had good rapport on the ice with the players and the coaches. But a lot of times, even as a supervisor in pro, say in the ECHL, I would go in after a game and see a coach, and he's like, Bryan, and they don't even want to talk about calls or non-calls or penalties that should have been called. They just want to talk that, at the 10-minute mark of the second period, we had to stop it, and I had a question, and the referee wouldn't come over and talk to me. And if the coach is doing it the proper way, not with the gate open or standing on top of the boards or whatever, then, hopefully the official can go over and put out a little bit of a brush fire by good communication. And that's a big part of it too. So, and that happens a little bit more as you get older and more experienced, because the players start to communicate with you a lot more too. I'm not expecting a lot of dialogue between a 10-year-old referee and a minor hockey coach, because it's a tough thing for a youngster to do. But with more experience, it comes along. It's just we all have to pull on the same rope here to make the game better. And I'm looking forward to having our supervisors in place, along with myself, kind of leading the way, and just having the consistent message at each level. And hopefully we can make things a little bit better.
So, Bryan, have you had the opportunity to look at the current status, the relationship with the coaches, and what is needed right away within the HNO? Like, what's the main issue that you're finding? Obviously, I know that you've just been appointed this position, but have you been able to talk to anyone, see what their feedback is? Is it positioning? Is it the coaches are yelling at the kids? Is it we don't have enough refs? Is there anything that you've got feedback with yet?
Well, a lot of those calls are going to happen this week now that the holiday is sort of behind us. So I do want to reach out to all the district referee and chiefs that are around the branch of Northwestern Ontario, and including here in Thunder Bay with the minor hockey. I think I have a pretty good handle on how things have been progressing, because I have been involved with the branch level in my previous position with the ECHL as commissioner of that league, and I handled all the officiating for that league in terms of dealing with coaching complaints and stuff like that. So I think in general it's As long as the referees are coming in, they're working hard. They're not lazy. They show up on time. And they give a good effort. I think that's the one thing that'll win coaches over. And again, with a little bit of communication as well. But it's going to be a different animal. I have to be honest, Andrew. I haven't dealt a lot in minor hockey. I've for the last 30 years or so, I've been involved with either junior or pro hockey. So that's going to be a little bit different. But I'm just there to if I go to the rink, I'm just going to watch the officials and give my evaluations and give my tips and pointers, and always end on a positive. If you pick out a few things that you have to be a little bit critical of, but pump up their tires at the end and make sure that they move on to the next game, that they're confident and they can learn from what happened that previous game. And I've always said, even up until the last game I ever refereed in professional hockey, is like, if you go to the rink and don't learn anything one night, it hasn't been a good night. So I think it's always a learning process. And I think, overall, I think the game is a little bit easier to officiate. I think penalty calls are more accepted. Like in the 1980s, if you tried to call a hack on the glove of a guy driving the net in a 2-2 game with 2 minutes to go, you'd be crucified. Yeah. Where now, if it's a penalty, everybody seems to accept it as long as it's been a penalty all night or all season for the most part. So I think that helps the officials. They've made the rule book a lot more black and white. There's hardly any gray area anymore. Too many men on the ice is too many men on the ice. It doesn't matter what the score is. It doesn't matter how many penalties in a row one team has taken. So all of those things go hand in hand at every level. And I'm just hoping that, at the minor hockey league level, we can get people to buy into what we're trying to do. And that includes the coaches who can play a big part of it, as we mentioned earlier.
So, Bryan, you bring up definitely, again, I'm 100% behind the referees. I think coaches should, personally, if you yell at a ref, you should be suspended, no matter what. There should be no tolerance for that. Just throwing that out there. I could be, people are entitled to their own opinions.
Yeah, it's an emotional game. We get all that, but as long as you're not lambasting and showing up the referee, embarrassing the referee, setting a bad example for your players, who no matter what age they are, that's a big part of it. But it's an emotional game. We get that, but if it's done the proper way, and we give the coaches the proper channels to vent their frustrations or their concerns, that's always a way to do it as well. But I agree with you. It's nothing worse than going to a game and seeing parents and coaches sort of sometimes out of control, and the kids are out there kind of just staring at the ceiling going, what's going on here? We just want to play. So where
I was going with that, Bryan, is do you foresee different type of because I believe you mentioned you haven't had much with minor hockey. Do you foresee that being more of your focus for this first bit of your new role, dealing with the minor hockey, or are you going to maybe appoint someone to specifically deal with the minor hockey? Because I know, as you go through the ranks, it does get easier. As you mentioned, coaches are more accepting. Okay, the call's the call, move on. But minor hockey, it's typically a mom or a dad that's on the bench. Do you see that being the primary focus, or do you see an overall span of focus with the new role?
Well, I think, we do have refereeing chiefs in place in each, minor hockey association in Thunder Bay and around the area that encompasses Hockey Northwestern Ontario. So, that'll be the lead person, for each organization to go to their referee in chief of their respective league. Now, I oversee all that. I definitely, part of my job, I really want to get out and supervise and teach. So I'll have that, in my back pocket every time I go to the rink. But for sure, it's a big part of it. I think we have to lean a lot on the people that are in place already and support them. Those are really volunteer positions, those referee and chief positions. And again, it's a thankless job, but it can be very rewarding when you see kids move up, and especially young officials that move through the system and get a chance to go and work at Dudley Hewitt Cup, which we have here in Ontario for Junior A for the regional championships, or the Centennial Cup, which has now been rebranded as back again as the Canadian Junior A Hockey Championship. They haven't had a chance to play for the Centennial Cup yet because of COVID, but yeah, but it's really even in my previous job with the SIJHL, seeing our officials move on to those championships and officiate and do very well and get picked to work the playoff games and the championship finals is very rewarding, and that's what we want to see, right through the branch, right from the ground up.
Bryan, stick with me. We got to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about the referees and chiefs. We'll be right back with Bryan Graham with HNO. Welcome back, everyone. We have Bryan Graham with us, the Director of Officiating for the HNO. Bryan, before we went to the break, you hit on some topics there that I wanted to reach out and just get some more clarification on. The referees and chiefs are obviously spread out around. What guidance will you be able to provide them to help them grow their certain spot around the Ontario League?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest thing is, good communication with them, working on the scheduling, as you get into the midget, AA, AAA, seeing who's working in those, who's, working well to move up to that level. And then from there, it's a progression. And I've dealt with that a little bit with the branch in my previous job, but it's, getting that, 17, 18-year-old official, making sure that they're working the proper level that they are and they're getting enough assignments at that level so they continue to develop, and then move them through that that cycle as they come into junior A and then hopefully the OUA and then where it goes from there. Whether they leave the area or not, because there's a chance to go on and work pro hockey, etc. But I think with the directors of officiating, I think it's just in my title as director of officiating, working with the referee and chiefs of all the different minor hockey associations, is just, with our supervisors that are going out to watch, just a consistent message. That's what I think my job is going to be early on, is just trying to develop that and what we're going to try to strive and work hard to get new officials into the game, and going out and talking to, players, especially the ones that are, getting into that, teenage years of 15, 16, saying, there's a chance here to, stay in the game. It gives you a whole different perspective of hockey. There's a chance to make a little bit of money. If you don't want to go work at McDonald's flipping burgers, there's a chance to go out and work hard and officiate, and it's good exercise, etc. So there's a lot of components to it. It's going to be a work in progress for sure, but I think just now with me in this position, with the time that's committed now to it, with the money behind it, it's just kind of bringing all those different aspects of minor hockey together. And it kind of comes through me as the director of officiating and working just primarily in development and recruitment for officials.
That's awesome to hear. I'm trying to think of how to word this correctly. So as your role, are you going to be able to establish some type of guidance or I guess a pamphlet of such that will enable a lot of these smaller communities in that area to go out and recruit? Because obviously, as you mentioned earlier, it's hard to find referees nowadays. So are you guys going to be able to come up with a strategy that was the word I'm looking for, strategy. Are you guys going to be able to come
That's a good one.
Yeah, I like that, eh? I'll write that one down. Are you guys going to be able to come up with a strategy to entice those 14, 15-year-old players that are maybe just, wanting that extra money? Are you guys going to be able to do something like that to help them and then encourage them? And a follow-up to that, are you going to be able to have a mentoring program with some of those older 18, 19-year-old referees to help train those young ones?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of the supervisors will come in and play a big role in that, and we want to get more supervisions done. A young referee shouldn't only get supervised once a year. It should be hopefully 3 or 4 times a year if possible. I think in our smaller communities in Northwestern Ontario, that is going to be a big thing to tackle. Because there's fewer players playing the game, there's the numbers in some of these communities have shrunk, over the years. But I think, once I get a handle, talking to the RICs in the area and seeing what the issues have been, getting some feedback on what they think may work, and then trying to create a plan. I would love to see, Andrew, I know it's tough with budgets and all that, but I would love to see for a young minor hockey player that wants to get into officiating, if he gets into officiating, gets his level 1, and begins in the Hockey Canada program and gets, works through a hockey season and gets a certain number of assignments, that maybe there's a possibility they get reduction on their hockey registration. Throw them that bone. Mom and dad would love to hear that. It's like, little Johnny or little Tammy went out and refereed hockey this year, and they made X amount of dollars, and they really enjoyed it. And at the end of the day, we're going to get maybe a reimbursement on the registration that they actually played when they had a stick in their hand and were actually playing hockey instead of officiating it. So, there's a lot of different things we can look at. And again, it's going to be a big job, especially like you said, in some of our smaller areas where there's not as many officials. Keeping the retention and finding new people to come into the game, willing to do it and wanting to do it.
Do you, in your past, did you notice at a certain age where the referees were kind of like, I'm done?
Yeah, I would think it's probably in that 17, 18-year-old range. A lot of times it's just the fact that some of them, realize they can't probably advance much past maybe minor hockey, which there's nothing wrong with that. I know a lot of guys that have refereed minor hockey for 20 or 30 years and loved every minute of it and still do it. But there's sometimes there's limitations when it comes to skating or whatever, and the game is so fast now at the junior A level, or you watch the World Juniors the past couple of weeks. It's just incredible, the speed and skill, and that's really why the most hockey now is officiated by 4 people on the ice. It's a big part of it. I really never had a chance to do that in my career. It was pretty much 3-man the whole way, but it's really helped the officials on the ice and made the game better. So yeah, that's those are big parts of it. But yeah, I would say usually at around 17, 18, some of them start to get whittled out a little bit. Like I said, there's a lot of guys that go into their 30s and 40s and still love doing it, and those are the guys that we're looking to mentor the youngsters that are coming up through the system.
Bryan, you brought up an interesting point that I want to touch on, the 4 referees on the ice. Do you ever foresee that coming into the minor hockey, especially at the higher levels, the bantam? Well, we can't call it bantam anymore. The U15s, the U15s and the U18s in that range. Do you see that ever coming in with Hockey Canada?
Well, it's again, it's on numbers and a lot, and the availability of it all. They've gone to a lot of 2 referee kind of 1 linesman system. So you do have kind of 2 sets of eyes calling penalties, which is big because they want a lot of penalties called away from the puck when it comes to the obstruction penalties and the restraining fouls. So never say never, but I know numbers will probably play a big factor in it, and consistency. The NHL and all the levels that use 4 officials and 2 referees really want, they have to strive for consistency every night. So a penalty at one end is a penalty at the other end, if they happen 30 seconds apart and they're called by 2 different referees. So it could happen. I know it's really tough in the minor pro levels because of the numbers and all the hockey that's going on, but it's unfortunate the ice is the size that it is, because I know 4 officials, sometimes it seems like they're getting in the way a lot, and that's too bad. That the National League, I think, kind of missed the boat a little bit there. Back in the 90s when all those new buildings were being built, if they would have realized when Eric Lindros stepped on the ice and said, maybe we should make the ice a little bit bigger, that would have helped a lot, especially when they went to the 4 official system in the National Hockey League in the late 1990s.
Yeah. The one thing that just comes to mind, just as you were speaking there, the size of the ice. Has that ever, because now for you you 7 programs and are you 8 programs, it's typically a half ice, which is
Hmm.
usually one referee. And then as they get older, it moves into the one ref, the 2 linesmen, and then as you progress, as you were just saying, the 4 officials. Do you see us sticking with that type of of training for the referees as well? It's going to be one of you until you get to the U17, U15 type area.
Yeah, I could see that happening, Andrew. I think, like you said, on the half ice, it's one official is more than enough, and then they go to two-man system. And a lot of the, I when I first started working hockey, it was 2 officials on the ice for the most part in minor hockey, and then when you got into Bantam and midget, back in the old days when that's when the divisions were called, it kind of went to 3-man from there. And like I refed my whole professional career as a referee in a 3-man system, so we were going end to end, doing the 6 miles a night or whatever it was. They said a referee would skate on an average night. Yeah, I think it would probably might stay status quo a little bit. They might tinker a little bit more, like you said, with when it moves up into the higher teens, that we could maybe see 4 officials at some point, or a little bit more of that kind of 2 referee, 1 linesman system. Definitely. But I think right now, status quo, it seems to be working pretty well from what I've seen so far.
So Bryan, totally off topic, but do you think or see anything that could be changed for the referees right now?
In Hockey Canada, I don't really. There is a proposal, to kind of change the level system a little bit and reduce it somewhat, and just have kind of that level 1 as the introductory level, and that's your early taste of minor hockey. But I don't really see a lot changing in the game from an officiating standpoint. I think. Obviously, with more video available, I mean, that's a big part of it. You might see more video reviews start coming in at in different tournaments, or like obviously here at the World Juniors, there's all kinds of technology there that they can use at their disposal. But I think video would start playing a bigger role. Not to say that we're going to have games videoed consistently at the Pee Wee or Bantam levels or the U12 or U14 that we're looking at now as the new divisions, etc. But for the most part, the technology is there. The referees are very well protected now, equipment wise. I don't see too much changing there. They've kind of gone to this new P-less whistle, but other than that, I don't see a lot of things changing from an officiating standpoint in that regard.
Bryan, hang out with me here for a bit more. We got to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. We're joined with Bryan Graham, Director of Officiating for the HNO. Bryan, before we went to commercial break, I asked you that silly question about do you see anything changing? The reason I asked that is I just wanted to see your reaction, because obviously we've seen a lot of changing in refereeing over the years, the 2-man, the 1-man, the 3-man, the 4-man, and now really with the 6th man being the camera and the guy sitting in Toronto. Do you see that being a good thing for hockey, having that 6th man available, or do you think that it's overruling the referee's decision on the ice?
Well, you always want to get it right. Like I remember doing games, and there would be a call that you were pretty sure you had nailed, But in the back of your mind, because somebody had said something, on the ice or off the ice, or the reaction of the fans, whatever, that you kind of had that, in the back of your mind, geez, did I get it right? And, when I worked in pro hockey, we would get a copy of the game on a VHS tape. And sometimes I would drive, 200 miles after a game and get home to wherever I was living and throw that tape in the VCR and take a look and say, geez, I did get it right. So that's great.
I'm sorry, Bryan, what's a VHS and what's a VCR?
Yeah, there's stacks of them in offices everywhere that are collecting dust. But we had that tool back then, and a lot of times there was only one camera. But it's that is a big part of it, and I think it's really helped the officiating at the high levels. It proves the guys are right most of the nights in the National League, and nobody wants to go home knowing that the winning goal was offside. But if they have a chance to look at it, and the game is so fast now. Like, I talked to some of my friends that work in the National League, guys I worked with, and they just say, it happens so fast, and no matter what angle you have, it's just the naked eye always can't catch it. So yeah. I think that's been a great tool. And now with this new offside rule that they're talking about, we're going to adopt in the National League, with the skate doesn't have to be in contact with the blue line. I mean, that's going to be a whole new animal too to watch. Because at the other levels of hockey, that's not going to be the call. It's still going to be contact to the ice because they don't have video review. So the game is evolving quite a bit by video. I watch football, and it's just unbelievable how many delays they have to go watch plays over again. Was the knee down? Was it a fumble? So all the high definition cameras, all the cameras they have now, within the arena or stadium that these games are being played in, they don't miss anything. And it's good that the referees, especially at the highest level where the money is big and the results mean everything, that they have that resource to make sure that they get it right. Now, whether that, slowly develops more and more, and, in 20 years from now, are we going to see cameras mounted above nets in minor hockey rinks? Probably not. But in a way, the game has really evolved from an officiating standpoint because of video and video review.
So, Bryan, what's your take, excuse me, on the future of refereeing? Just with that said, do you think we're going to see referees with more of the cameras on the helmet at the higher levels? I can't really see it being a minor. But do you think we're going to come to that point where we're going to have the helmet cams for the referees?
Well, I think the helmet cams are more just to give the fans a little bit more perspective of what might happen on the ice or the view of an official. I don't think it's going to play a factor in making calls or overturning calls or confirming calls. But there's all kinds of technology out there. I love watching, the mic'd up referees, and the players. And I just laughed days that, I can imagine some of the conversations that would have been recorded when I was officiating if I had been mic'd up. And there was a couple of games I worked where the players were mic'd up. So, but it is entertaining. It just have no idea really what goes on the ice and what is said, and the camaraderie sometimes that happens actually between the officials out there, or the dialogue with the players, which a lot of times is very lighthearted. It's not all this grinding that you think is going on out there. But helmet cam on the officials. It's interesting, but I don't think it'll play a big factor in the technology in terms of how the game is officiated.
Now, what about safety for referees now? What, if anything, is available to them, or what are the safety measures for referees?
Well, it's come a long way. Like I mentioned earlier in the interview, like I was refereeing as a young kid, and it's kind of scary to say that now, but I didn't even wear a helmet. Can you imagine kids going out and refereeing hockey now with a helmet or a visor? But it's great that the National Hockey League is all the officials now wear visors. That's a big thing because the pucks are just flying from everywhere now. And there's an extra body on the ice that has a tendency to sometimes, maybe fill a lane and get in the way, or on the dump-ins, etc. That linesman that doesn't have a chance to get out of the way, or a referee that's now ahead of the play instead of always trailing the play. So a dump in would hardly ever hit a referee, but now in the 4-man system, when they're rimming the puck around the glass, that referee down low has got to be really weary of and leery of the puck. But they're very well protected now. The equipment is great. The skates are great. The technology over time with the girdles that they wear, for lack of a better, back in the Cooperall days, the guys, even some guys now wear flat jackets to protect the rib areas and that, or if they've had a pre-existing injury, rib injury or anything like that. So the referees are very well protected. I think now when a fight happens, for the most part, it's over. You watch some of those old games in the 1970s when the linesmen went in with no helmets on, and the guys were still throwing haymakers over top, of the referees and linesmen. And I don't know how some of those guys didn't get majorly hurt back then, but it's a different game for sure now. But I think in terms of the officials and their equipment, everything's been kept up to speed with the way the game has evolved.
So my favorite ref, and I can't remember his name right now. He's the guy who he shows up and he makes the funny hand gestures and he's like, "That's 2 minutes for roughing." I can't remember that guy's name. Do you know?
A current referee?
Yeah, in the NHL.
Is it Wes McCauley?
Yeah, Wes.
Yeah.
I love Wes. He's
yeah,
funny.
Wes and I are good friends. We work together in the ECHL, and he's Wes played the game. He was drafted by the Detroit Red Wings. He played hockey at Michigan State. His dad, John McCauley, was a legendary referee and actually was in charge of the referees as director of officiating back in the day with the National League. So Wes, had it in his blood, and he's very passionate about the game. He cares about the game. He's very respected by the players. And that intensity and his excitement comes out sometimes the way he makes calls, especially with the microphone now in the arena and on TV, and he seems to have some fun with it too, which is great because it shows that the officials have some personality as well, and they're not just robots out there, doing it. So, this ritual that you're out there, calling penalties, and you have to be like a robot or an army drill sergeant. It really shows the human element of the game from an officiating perspective.
My favorite call that he made is he said, "I'm sending these 2 guys to the benches because they can't resolve their situation. So 2 minutes each for roughing." And the whole place broke out laughing. That was my favorite call he's ever made.
Yeah, that's great. And I guess Wes and the guys are getting ready to crank it back up on January 13th when the NHL returns. So we're looking forward to that.
Hopefully we get to hear him up here in Canada. I'm not sure if he is a Canadian ref, is he not?
No. Wes resides in the U.S. He lives in the U.S., but from what I understand, most of the Canadian-based referees are going to work the Canadian division in the National League. Don't quote me on that, but that seems to be the word. And then they don't want the officials, trying to cross the border because that's been kind of tough. So it sounds like the officials, and including some Canadian officials that are based in the U.S. and live there now, will primarily work all the U.S. games. Now, when it comes to the playoffs, that might change, and hopefully, we're in a better spot with COVID by the time the playoffs roll around in late spring. But yeah, it's I don't envy the work that Stephen Walkham with the National League and Randy Hall, who does the scheduling, trying to put all that together now with the Canadian division with Canadian officials, and then American-based officials working the other 3 divisions that they've set up.
We're definitely going to see a lot more fights on the ice.
Well, with COVID, you wonder. I think, when they started up with the bubble last year, I think what was the first game? There was the first playoff game they played within about a minute and a half. There was a fight, and I think I just read that some leagues now are. I think it was the Quebec Junior A League. They've gone to 15 minutes, 15-minute penalty for fighting or something like that. Yep. So it's a whole different animal now with COVID, and real credit to the National League that they got through the bubble in Edmonton and Toronto without any problems. And we'll see how it goes now because they're not in a bubble, and it's going to be a whole different thing with teams flying on planes and referees flying on planes and renting cars, etc. Just wish them all the best with it.
Talking about COVID, Bryan, what do you foresee happening in the future out there for you guys? Do you think there's going to be a possible end to the season? Do you think we're going to extend the season? Have you got any word? Do you know what you're going to be doing with the scheduling? Any idea whatsoever?
Well, currently here in Thunder Bay in Northwestern Ontario, we're in the middle of a 14-day lockdown, so all activities have been suspended again. It's really hard to say, Andrew. That obviously that's the million-dollar question everybody wants to know at all levels. Everything seems to be getting pushed back here in Canada with the major junior leagues, etc. So when we were playing hockey here in Thunder Bay, it was very limited to who could be in the arena, no parents, etc. Like I don't even know right now when we start up again if I wanted to go and just supervise a game, whether, with the numbers, I'd be able to get in the building or not. So those are going to be some questions that'll be answered here in the next month or so. We hope that hockey can continue as long as we can into the spring, to let these, players develop. I feel so bad for, especially the kids that are, 18, 19, 20, that, in the junior A and major junior levels, the university hockey, college hockey, that, it's going to be very hard for these kids to get these years back, and they're right at the peak of their development in terms of amateur hockey. So, but hopefully, with the vaccine out now, we can turn the corner a little bit, and definitely, but most of our plans in terms of what I'm trying to accomplish will really be set for next September, hopefully, when we're back up and running, back to some sense of normalcy. This year there was no new officials brought in our branch because they did not hold any clinics. So it's pretty much status quo with the officials, the ones that did opt in to officiate this year, and some of the games that have been played at the minor hockey and junior levels within our branch. So that'll be a big factor moving forward too, is just to see where hockey's at and who's allowed in the rink, etc.
Brian, hang on to those thoughts. We got to take a quick commercial break. I can't afford the show without commercial breaks, so we got to.
I hear you. Got to pay the bills.
That's right. We'll be right back. We are back with Mr. Bryan Graham, Director of Officiating for the HNO. Bryan, thanks again for joining us this evening. Happy New Year again.
Happy New Year. Yes, yeah. It's got to be better than 2020. We all know that.
I'm not holding my breath, Bryan, but I'm hoping so.
Gotta stay positive.
Trying, I really am. It's very frustrating because you want to see, like you just mentioned, all athletes have been affected by COVID, and their pay has been affected. Scholarships have been affected. It really sucks. It's not been. There was a joke or a meme going around about 2020. It was the worst year ever. They had to name it twice. So.
Yeah, for sure. It will definitely go down in the record books, and not in a good way.
Yeah, unfortunately. So, Bryan, with this new role, I want to wish you the best of luck with it, and I hope that by you coming on the show today, we can shed some light on what's needed out there for officials and the need for officials. Actually, let's touch on that. Clear across Canada, there is a shortage of officials. Clear across North America, there is.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just briefly explain what the steps are if someone wants to become an official, or if I'm a parent and I have a young one who does play hockey, what's involved? What can we do to become officials? And maybe, I'm in my early 40s. Can I still ref? Want to hit briefly on that?
Sure. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities, whether you just want to get into the grassroots level and work minor hockey or recreation hockey and go out on a Saturday morning and put the blades on. And like I said, it gives you a great perspective of the game, a completely different perspective. You can contact your local minor hockey association. They'll get you in touch with who's in charge. You can contact your branch. For the people here in Thunder Bay with Hockey Northwestern Ontario, they can contact the branch and me directly at our branch office, and we can get someone started. And if you have a passion for the game and you want to stay in the game, I was very fortunate. I embraced it. I really enjoyed officiating even when I was still playing. I remember as a kid, leaving my game and going straight down to the referee's room in the same rink to go referee next, and having 5 minutes to take off my shin pads and all that and put all my referee gear on and go back out there for another 3 hours and work a couple of minor hockey games. So it's we do need more officials in the game. And again, it's a great exercise. You meet a lot of great people. You learn a lot more about the game than just from a player perspective or a coaching perspective. And who knows? There's a lot of guys that move up and move on. They get to go and work championships across the world. Whether you're still an amateur official or you're fortunate enough to make it into the professional ranks. And I know a lot of guys that I work with. They worked the East Coast Hockey League and they worked the American Hockey League. They didn't make the NHL, but they got to, brush shoulders with a lot of great players who did move on. And like I said, there's a lot of guys that I worked with in minor pro hockey that are in the NHL now and making a great salary and a great living and stuff. But they wouldn't give it back. They wouldn't trade it in for anything else. So. So if anybody's out there that, whether it's a young boy or a young girl, or like you said, Andrew, someone in their 30s or 40s that wants to get involved, absolutely contact your local branch office or your local association, and they can lead you down the right path to get involved in officiating and get your level one and start moving up the Hockey Canada ranks in terms of what it takes to become an official within our great game here in Canada.
Sweet. Bryan Graham, thanks very much for joining us this evening. We really appreciate your time and want to thank you for being on the show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with you, sir. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining us for today's show on the ice. Coming up this Thursday, we're going to be sitting down with the IHA general manager and get some feedback about his program in the CSSHL. Again, today's show was Bryan Graham, the Director of Officiating out there in the HNO. Thanks again very much, everyone, for joining us. See you on Thursday.